Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the weekly Indies Under the Knife stream, where I play a bunch of indie games that are still in development, and I give feedback on the game design, give feedback on anything else that I think could be improved about those games. My professional background is as a game designer. I've also been a producer, or an assistant producer in one of the studios I've worked in. I've been a studio creative lead at another studio. So, game designer by trade, but when you do this more touchy-feely creative stuff, you tend to find yourself in lots of different types of roles. So, ostensibly a game design stream, but often we end up talking about other stuff like general creative direction and UI and UX and stuff like that. UX, user experience, is not the most exciting or sexiest part of game design, but it is the one that a lot of indie developers struggle with. And sometimes that's because just when you're deep in a project, you can't see the wood for the trees, you can't see what's wrong with what you're doing. And sometimes it's because it's boring and it's not a fun part of game dev to do. So, hi Kitten in the chat. I've got my multi-stream chat up this time, so I should actually be able to see both the platforms at the same time. Take me a little while to get used to Streamlabs, but to be honest, it's not that different from OBS. So let's see what we've got this time. I had 5 platformers lined up. This one, Switcheroo, does not seem to have a public demo anymore, and it's weird because it said that the demo was going live in May. So that was 2 months ago. I don't have a key for it, and the demo seems to have gone live and then unlived, which is a shame, because this one looked quite neat. So, a kangaroo named Jade escapes from an evil mad scientist. And yeah, it kind of like stylistically reminds me of like early 90s PC platformers like Jazz Jackrabbit and stuff like that. And if this is your kind of first time tuning into this channel, I don't have any specific love for platformers. I'm just working my way through games that have been sent to me by genre. So I put all the platformers together today because we can see, we can compare them and we can see which ones do which things better. I know platformers in the indie space is one of those kind of genres where people groan at it. They go, oh, no, not another platformer. I tend to find that the people that say that are just people that don't like platformers in general. And I think it's a really disingenuous thing to do when you don't like something, to sort of present that as a fatigue of that thing. Oh no, not another one of these, I'm bored of these. And it's like just something you didn't like in the first place. People do it, it's not just in games, people do it with every type of thing. They sort of pretend that they've stopped liking a thing because there's too much of it or it's become too popular, when actually they just never liked that thing in the first place, you know? So I don't have a specific love of platformers. I'm very neutral on them. I'm working on one at the moment. And I think generally speaking, I don't have a specific love for any genre of game. People ask me that sometimes, because I think when people first get into game dev, they think that picking the right genre is just going to like magically unlock success for them. And generally speaking, people that make games are working in genres they're excited about. They're excited to innovate on or something like that. My favourite games are the games in each genre that I find interesting. There isn't a genre of games that is just automatically interesting to me most of the time, because you can pick any genre of games and 90% of the games released in that genre are going to be bad. But there are genres like platformers where the majority of beginner projects are kind of condensed, or, you know, there are also genres that people think are easy to do, so there are more games released in that genre, and it gives people the impression that that genre is bad, when actually it's just there are lots of bad games in that genre because people think it'll be easy to learn, and then people release games that are learning projects and perhaps don't need a commercial release. So Switcheroo looks pretty neat. I like the visual style of this. And then, but yeah, this one we can't play. And then I've got Machine Gun Knight, which I love the name of. We've got Teeto, which is a 3D platformer. Looks very cute, but I'm always a bit wary of a 3D platformer with this kind of vibe, because it's that kind of nostalgia thing of, are you making a game for children, or are you making a game that is meant to make adults reminisce about the games they played when they were children, right? And those are different things, because making a game for children as an indie game on Steam is weird anyway. Like, how many people do you know who have children who buy games for them? I can almost guarantee that most of the people that you know who have children, their kids are locked into platforms like Fortnite and Roblox and stuff like that. They're generally not playing that many games on Steam. There might be the odd one who's like got super geeky parents that are happy to help them with that platform and stuff, but I generally think Steam is not a good idea for making games for children. And I also think sometimes people make games for children as a cop-out because they don't want to do something particularly deep or exciting, which leaves you in a kind of weird space in terms of who the audience for your product is. So when I see this kind of aesthetic, I'm kind of like, is this going to be aimed at children? And in which case, why? Because the games that have done well, that evoke that kind of childlike style but are aimed at adults, They're deep, they maybe have some mature themes. You can do those things and be cute at the same time. That's what things like Cult of the Lamb are doing so well. So I'm always a bit wary when I see this kind of aesthetic, because I sort of wonder who it's for. And we'll see with this one. It looks very polished. And I think the last game I played like this was Paperclay, and Paperclay was really charming, gave me plenty to think about. It wasn't like a game that was mechanically for a 6-year-old. I could still enjoy it as an adult. Be interesting to see how this stands up to Paperclay, which is kind of in the same category as. We've got Time Killer, which is a very funky looking 3D platformer as well. And then Rat Trap, which is a high concept sort of physics platformer type thing. So we're in a little hamster ball, I guess. And yeah, some fun concepts here. So, you know, hamster ball going into part of a mech, swapping parts out and stuff. Looks really, really polished, this one. Love the concept. Yeah, just looks stylistically very kind of coherent as well from a visual standpoint. So gonna see all of these, and we'll start with the games that I can play in the browser. I've got the Steam ones downloaded already, so let's check out Machine Gun Light, and hopefully it runs okay in the browser. So this is a fast-paced, action-packed roguelike platformer. Shoot your way downward, collect coins, grab power-ups, and take advantage of the shop as you descend through an ever-changing series of challenging dungeons. I feel like I just automatically become defensive when I see the word roguelike in anyone's game description nowadays, and it's not necessarily the that doesn't look good. Not necessarily the developer's fault. It's just I feel like we need another name for run-based games, because sometimes roguelike suggests a degree of depth that isn't there when I play the game, and I just don't think like some random stuff is enough for something to be a roguelike. But we will see. We'll see if this ticks the boxes. I'm just going to zoom into that as much as I can. Thank you, Sawyerberg, for sending this one in. I'm just going to make my portrait smaller. There we go. I can play with the controller. That's a good start. I'm a bit of a gamepad purist when it comes to generally speaking. If I'm controlling a little character, I probably want to be using a gamepad. Really nice jump. This is really the test with any kind of character control game. Like the platformer I'm working on at the moment doesn't have this quality to it yet. But if the player can just run around for the first 5 seconds and enjoy maneuvering the character, then you're probably onto something good. And if they can't, then it's like you are failing at the basic thing that this genre is supposed to do well. Okay, so we are a knight. We have a machine gun. I can do 4-way directional control of the machine gun. I can keep myself up in the air like down well if I shoot down. That's nice. And let me know about the volume as well. I'm on a new streaming platform today, so things might be a little bit out of whack. I've got a shoot button, I've got a jump button, and nothing else as far as I can see right now. And I can't smash these, which is a shame. Kind of immediately want to shoot the smashable things, but they're not smashable. Now we're downwelling. I think we're going to do some downwell. Okay, bit more relaxed than downwell. I get a platform to stand on. Yeah, I think the reloading is when you land. Which is a nice tying together of mechanics rather than having a separate button for reload. Boots of Ike. Movement speed boost. So many lovely little VFX on the player character as well. That kind of, look, that destruction VFX when you blow up the box. Sort of has those like little square explosions that come out of it. It's great because it creates this very noisy set of VFX when you're destroying stuff, but you can also sort of see what they correspond to because the boxes have like square explosions. Enemies have round explosions and the boxes have square explosions. One of the things I always end up going on and on about with like VFX and feedback is that it's not like late game polish. It is always like one of the things that helps communicate to the player what's going on. And there's been a lot of care and attention gone into that side of things here. It looks like downwell mechanically because of the downward movement, but it actually feels more like something like Gunstar Heroes or Contra, and that's mainly because of the directional shooting. Seamus, the robot golf game is called Golfer, like Golfr, like Grinder but for golf. Shovel Knight is here. Max ammo, that sounds like a good... Invincibility frame. I kind of know what that means, but I think there's maybe an easier way of communicating that, because that's such a sort of nerdy genre-specific thing to call it. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you can see game feel, you know? People in the chat saying it looks like it feels good, basically, but yeah, like, look at the screen shake as well. There's a little bit of screen shake. It's not enough to sort of upset your ability to control anything. And even if it was, it's like in a context where it becomes part of the trade-off of like, okay, I'm using my big powerful gun, I'm destroying stuff, things become a bit wobbly. And that gives you a sense of power, but it also makes it feel a bit more unruly when you're shooting, right? And I think... Oh, that's cool. Is that a permanent upgrade, that spread ammo? That's nice. I think when you're playing a game where you're controlling a character, I know there are some precision platformers like Celeste where it's a very one-to-one mapping of the controls onto what your character's doing, but I think you want like a little bit of unruliness in how things work in the game, because otherwise there's nothing to learn, you know? You think of like when you, like those of you who drive, you think of when you get a new car and how it feels to learn to drive a new car. I think that's the experience that action games where you're controlling a character, that's kind of like the experience that action games should give you as you learn them. It's like that experience, but without the fear of actually crashing a car, you know? Oof. Nice name. Sir. Yeah, this feels great. It'll be interesting to see if it changes much run for run. The spread gun felt pretty good. Yeah, I think Golfer was sent to me when it was still reasonably early. They've done a lot of work on it, and I think this is a different game I'm talking about now, but I think they just hadn't quite worked out how the adventure part worked without kind of taking the golf out of it too much. But it was really neat. A very atmospheric, very kind of Portal type vibe to it. The golf mechanics were perfect. I think it was just the way that the sort of sci-fi story mild peril stuff was integrated needed a bit more thought and iteration. But as an actual golf game, it worked really well already. Hi, Brainoid. I see Kitten is our only regular who is here on the Twitch instead of on the YouTubes. Yeah, this will always be like a YouTube channel first and foremost, but I thought I would start trying to learn the ropes of the multi-streaming stuff. I feel like the audience who watches streams on both platforms is pretty similar anyway. You're all pro-social people who just want to hang out and talk about something that's a shared interest. I think the YouTube streaming audience is probably more similar to the Twitch streaming audience than to the YouTube comment section audience. Which, yeah, the channel really blew up in the last... I know it's been doing consistently well, but the YouTube channel really blew up in the last week and like doubled in views and stuff like that. I don't know why. I think I've just been releasing a lot of stuff. And there are so many folks on YouTube that really want very, very focused educational content that doesn't have any personality or any digressions and just answers the question in the title. And those sorts of people get very, very annoyed with me. And I just think, if you want stuff like that, you need to read a book or read a website article. Like, go to a format that is good for that, because most people that watch video content want personality as well. And if you don't want personality, but you insist on watching videos of people, then you're in the minority of people on that platform. I could just write GameDeveloper.net articles on most of the things I talk about, and if you just want a quick explainer of a game design concept or something, all of that stuff already exists, and you can go and watch it. So it's so strange to me. I get quite a lot of complaints of people that are just being like, get to the point, stop being a person. Stop making jokes and having subjective opinions about things. No. Hi, Gabs. Thanks. Nice name. Pooh. If you're only going to let me have 3 letters in my name, I'm going to put Pooh at some point. It did get a bit crazy. There's like a test with action games as well as like, can you kind of get into a flow state and have a conversation about something else while you're playing it for most of the time? I think that is quite a good metric. I know we tend to like, there's a lot of in the kind of marketing brain side of game dev, there is a lot of talk of like, oh, is this game streamer friendly or whatever, but a lot of the qualities that make a game streamer friendly are just kind of good UX qualities. And I sort of learned that, like, my first job when I was working on Amateur Surgeon, I remember my boss pointing that out as like quite a good test of sort of how casual a game was. And, you know, you want most games to be reasonably casual, unless you're going for a very, very hardcore audience. Is just, can someone talk about something else and play at the same time? Obviously, you still want to have like moments where someone has to lock in and focus, but I don't think that should be your starting difficulty for any game in most cases. We all get bored working on our games and make them harder and harder and harder because we're too good at them, but that's just a classic. This is a classic problem when you're the designer and the developer at the same time. You get bored of your own game, you make it harder and harder and harder. This feels pretty decent in terms of how difficult it is to start off with. And I think this is going to be quite hard to follow because I just like the explosions, and I don't think we're going to get another explosions game this this stream, because the other ones that we've got kind of two very cutesy ones. And another reason why I kind of always feel a bit of a groan when people are like, "Oh no, not another platformer," is just that it's such a diverse bunch of like type of game. It is really just a description of how the camera and the character work. You can do lots of different things with that. I will probably load mine up at the end of this stream and do a quick update on where I'm at with it. It depends how long it takes to get through these games, but I mean, I think this, you know, this is supposed to be a crit stream. I do not have any immediate feedback about this. There's nothing that jumps out to me as like something that seems broken or feels unfair or anything. I'm quite happy with everything I see here. I think when things are moving very fast, it's a little bit difficult to identify the enemies, and I think maybe the fact that they're all the same color could be making that a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. You know, the enemies are all themed as being these orange and yellow things, and they all have reasonably different silhouettes and everything, but maybe making them different colors from each other would just make it a bit more obvious at a glance. You know, if someone can kind of play your game while squinting and still tell what everything is, that's a good guideline for this kind of stuff in a fast-paced action game. Is there an upgrade that makes the TNT bigger? Because I really want those TNT squares to do more, like blow up more stuff in one go. Yeah, let me know in the chat if there's if the volume's alright on these games as well. I've literally first time using Streamlabs today, so I don't know if the default setup is usually okay. And I have all my audio stuff running through an external sound card, so the level things are in my headphones bears no relation to how loud they are on the stream. Another thing to check for in any kind of skill-based game, whether it's an action game or a turn-based game, you know, any game that's like skill-based rather than narrative, is when you watch people playtest it, do they get better? And I know that might sound really obvious, but sometimes, you know, people play a game and their verbal feedback is, oh, this is too hard. And then you watch them, after they've said it's too hard, you watch them get better. And then it's like, well, it's not too hard, you just sucked at it because you were learning a new thing. And if you can watch people get better over a couple of runs and they get better at a decent pace where they sort of start enjoying it, then that's a good sign as well. It might sound really obvious, but if you watch someone playtest your game 3 times and they don't get further, then there might be some problem with it. It might just be initially too hard. There might be a mechanic that's too hard to learn. In Derek Yu's Spelunky book, and hello, anyone who's new in the chat, I've got a podcast called The Game Developers Library. We've done 3 episodes so far. The first episode was about Derek Yu's book about Spelunky. One of the things he talks about in that is he had some feedback early on that it was too difficult. And then he sort of spent a lot of time, I think it was the... I can't remember what the name of the forums was, back and forth with this player. He didn't want to change the difficulty of the game, but actually what he found was the player was having problems with the controls. And there was an action in the game that took 2 or 3 presses when it should have just been mapped to 1 button. That kind of problem is the sort of thing where if people say something's too hard, check whether what they're perceiving as too hard is actually the difficulty of the game or whether it's a UX and controls thing. Because you might have just made something control in a way that makes it feel too difficult, and it's not actually the difficulty of the game, it's the difficulty of learning the controls. That's a good thing to watch out for in sort of twitchy action games. And the way that, Derek Yu describes it was the player, it was like he'd asked the player to play tennis, and the player was saying, I can't hit the ball over the net, so get rid of the net. Take the challenge away, get rid of the net. And actually then he realized what he'd given the guy to play tennis with was like a broken racket with no strings in it type thing, right? So that's kind of the thing. You'll get feedback that something's too hard, and then it's up to you to work out whether that's actually the difficulty of your game, like the health and the damage and the way things move, all of those things that we normally think of as difficulty, or whether it is that the UX of the game is bad and the player doesn't understand how to control it, because they will interpret that as the game being hard, and that's not necessarily the same thing as difficulty, although we kind of think that's how a player is going to verbalize that problem, and you have to be able to interpret that. I really like that. That is Machine Gun Knight. If you were on YouTube, all of the links to be able to check these games out or wishlist them or play them or whatever are on there. I will just chuck that in the chat as well. A Machine Gun Knight is a pretty memorable name, I think. Yeah. This is not like super creative or unique. People will look at it and think Downwell. I kind of like that it's a bit more relaxed and slower than Downwell. It did remind me of Gunstar Heroes and those kind of old school directional shooters like Gunstar Heroes and Contra and stuff like that. Don't really have a great deal of feedback on this, apart from, if you want this to be a bigger game, it's going to need a variety of content. It's going to need, guns that feel very different so that the run-based nature of it doesn't become boring. Because going through something procedurally generated, whether it's falling down or going through a dungeon, isn't really inherently interesting unless you're going through it with a different set of tools each time. That's the thing I tend to find. So you're going to need lots of different types of guns to make this work. And I think it would be really cool if we had upgrades for the firing pattern and then upgrades for the projectiles as well, so you could get those kind of combinations of, okay, this time I've got spread bullets and they bounce, or this time I've got spread bullets and they are fire. That kind of thing could be fun to play around with. I didn't play it for long enough to get a real sense of what the library of power-ups is. But yeah, there's a really solid base for a game. Art style is really neat. The people that like Mega Man are going to like this. Or they're going to find tediously small specific things about it that they don't like, that I am not a genre specialist enough to be able to perceive. What we've got next is Time Killer, which is a 3D platformer. We have to prove your skill by completing levels in a race against time. That's not a very interesting description, because prove your skill by completing levels in a race against time is like just such a generic description of a certain type of video game. In each level, you have a time limit to complete. So one of the things I've encouraged people to do before is when you write a description of your game, and it's kind of marketing on a Steam page or an itch page, try and describe the goal of the game and the stakes, like the win condition and the lose condition, as if you're talking to the player character and not the player, right? So instead of saying a race against time, you need to talk about why there is a time limit in the world of the game before the thing blows up. That's the reason why there's a time limit in the fiction of the game. Because your kind of ideal player that your marketing should be pointed at is going to already like the game mechanics of your game, right? And what you need to do is kind of put them in the position of the player character in the game to make it sound exciting. Because just saying it's a race against time and a time limit, it's like, that's not fundamentally exciting. That is just a very, very generic feature of video games. So I would always advise, when you describe something like this, to try and describe it in the fiction of the game, as if you're talking to the player character and not talking to the player. Okay, so we're moving with the joystick. We're flying with south or west face button. We're charge shotting with the right joystick, and we're shooting with the right joystick. Okay, I'm gonna try it with the gamepad, because generally I want to see how these types of games feel with that control scheme. You can see on my some of the pop-ups on the overlay are broken because of me messing around with it, but oh well, I'll sort that out another time. Okay, so remember what I said in the last one? First few seconds of the game, does just moving the character around feel nice before we introduce any kind of peril or challenge or anything? And walk the character around, really nice sort of occlusion effect where I can see myself through walls, which helps with some blocking issues. We've got that nice sort of jaunty bar next to the character. I don't know what it does yet, but it's got a kind of style to it. I hold down A or X and it does my fly, which is like, I guess that's dashing over gaps. And then we've got like a twin stick shooter type attack with the right joystick, but it sort of aims until I release it, I think. And if I aim it very quickly and then let go, it doesn't attack, it sort of cancels the attack. So you have to wait for it to... You can hear that little bloop. That's when it's ready to shoot. So if you aim and then stop, it cancels the attack. So it already feels like there's a lot of thought gone into these controls. It says... I can also keep the charge down and press the right shoulder button to just shoot multiple times. Okay, cool. Let's get moving. Let's get moving. Our scoreboard. Did I just turn that mode on by walking on that? Time killer mode, training mode. No, I wanna see what the actual intended experience is. We've got upward bouncies. Don't like that. Don't like going behind there and not being able to see if I'm going to fall off. Oh. Oh. Yeah, it's quite a repetitive main melody line to have that synth sound on it. I think you're right about the music. I'll turn the audio down a little bit. I mean, I think the kind of Tron lines is an aesthetic choice rather than it being a grey box. It is the kind of style of the game, but it is making it a little bit hard to read. And I think one of the things I would do, if you want to keep this kind of aesthetic but make it easier, is to have something different on the sides to on the tops of objects. Wait, what's going on with this wall here? Okay, that felt good. It took me a couple of times to get that, but... Oh. What am I doing down here? Am I supposed to be able to... I really don't like that occlusion that happens sometimes. Because it, especially if you're moving downwards, it really surprises you. So I think you need... In this scenario, we need all of the stuff between the player and the player character to be translucent. Rather than... Like, drawing the player character through the object is okay. It's like a... but it's just not enough. It's not enough to really solve the problem. Particularly when you move downwards, the stuff gets in the way. And it doesn't just get in the way, it gets in the way in a way that's sort of surprising and sort of throws you out of what you're doing a little bit. What's in here? Am I supposed to go down here? That's great. We've got some good, like, moments of delight in the level design. I like that kind of stuff. That's, why are you... I think the level design is suffering a little bit from not having a sense of what my goal is. You know, particularly if you're saying it's time attack. Like a time attack game, like a racing game or a racing platformer, generally is like you are heading in the same direction all the time, and you've just got to deal with these kind of you've got to deal with roadblocks as they show up and kind of respond to them with your Twitch skills. But this feels a bit too open for that. I think open is maybe a little bit at odds with it being time-based, you know? I've also got no reason to shoot anything yet. Shoot some red diamonds. So if you think Crash Bandicoot's a good example of that. Crash Bandicoot had a lot of fixed camera levels, like this fixed camera, but then they thought about like the direction of travel, whereas this is using all of the directions of travel, which means you're at a disadvantage when you're moving down the screen versus up. So I think I would construct these levels to deliberately be moving away from the camera as much as possible, and you know, even just making a rule like we never move towards the camera unless the player is backtracking through the level is going to make this so much easier for people to learn and play. That was good. Kind of, I like these kind of pinball type interactions with the bouncers. But I keep ending up back in places that I've already been, and it feels a bit anticlimactic. It's like I find a little level loop, I sort of explore the level loop, and then it just sort of takes me back somewhere I've already been, and I haven't been rewarded for completing that section of the level or anything. So I don't have an obvious overall goal for what I'm trying to do in the level. And then the level is divided up into these segments where I can go around there and loop around there, but there doesn't seem to be a reason for doing them. So yeah, there's a sort of core of a very charming game here, but there are a few decisions to do with like orienting the player that I don't think work very well in its current form. Like, why go that way, right? I went that way. I felt like I achieved something because I got to the end of a thing, and then it just threw me back to the beginning. And I don't know if that's because I made an error or if that's just all that happens when you go that way, you know? I mean, Timothus, you can play this on a keyboard. When a game is like this and it's very clearly modeled on a console game, you know, I prefer keyboard and mouse for games where I've got indirect control and I'm using a pointer. Generally speaking, if I'm controlling a character, I will test the game with a controller. And I think it's a good good habit to get into if you're a developer as well. If you're making character-driven games, like your goal should be that you're eventually going to release your thing on the Switch or some console at some point. Really, I think there are cases where that's not the case because your game requires particular types of networking or whatever. But you know, whenever you're making like a little action game, that should be in your mind somewhere. But yeah, even like PC FPS games, I would rather play on a controller. It's just people's personal history of what they've played games on most of their life usually determines these things, but yeah, we've got a shooting mechanic that isn't used in enough of the level for you to get feeling proficient in it. There's like that whole section over there. It feels like this demo is sort of yeah, it feels like this demo is just doing a lot of things that are it's just strange because it's presented here as being a game, but it feels like a prototype. I can't get out of that earlier section, and you've got all of these bits here, but I just can't find my way out of that. And I think starting with an open area is just a massive mistake. So what I would do is I would go, you know, I would block out your level to be very clear about what the player is doing and learning at each stage. So player learns to jump, and then, you know, you go north from there, and then player learns a harder jump. And this isn't an exciting way to structure a game, but it is what your players will need to be onboarded properly. Player does some basic shooting. And then after you've gone through all of this, really difficult jump up here, then you can start, you know, branching out and doing stuff like this. But I do think limiting the amount of moving backwards towards the camera would do this game a lot of good. Like, have levels that just go left to right and then levels that just go down to up. And try not to break that camera direction stuff, because it doesn't feel good. You get too much of like the environment occluding the character, and you've got some tools there to work around that, but it's kind of not enough. If I'm standing on a platform and that platform is behind a cliff, I can't see the edge of the platform I'm on. I can only see my character, and that's not like, that's just taking away control arbitrarily. So yeah. The actual levels are maybe down the green hole in the center. Let's give that theory a try. Because that looks like a death hole. So so I had that was not intuitive at all that I should jump down that hole, because it wasn't a welcoming hole. Yeah? If you're going to make me jump down a hole, put a big arrow above it. Put a big arrow that says go down this hole. Let's try it. And hopefully, I mean, this looks like it's going to follow the thing I said. Down to up. Yes. Much better. Quite hard to make jumping shots in this, but that's fine. That's gonna be a skill to learn. We've got some nice pinball-y. It's quite hard to see when you're going at an angle. It's quite hard to see whether you should push into that direction to get onto a specific one, or whether you should let the bounce take you in the direction it's going in. Ah! Okay. I'm going to leave it in time killer mode, even though it's probably going to be too hard, because it's how the game is intended to be played. Do we get some time back for killing the red gems? Because at the moment I don't see much reason to bother with them. Oh. Okay. That feels like a good level length for this. That was much better in terms of the structure. There are some jump angles where it's unclear whether you're supposed to just go with the bounce of the bouncer or whether you're supposed to bounce off it and then push in a particular direction. That feels a bit weird, and it's quite hard to see the angles from the position we're in. There were lots of like differently angled bouncers, and one didn't just take you to the next one. You had to like push away from it in a particular way, which was not ideal, but that felt much better than just messing around in the hub area. But at least there's a big easy fix for the hub area problem, and that's just put a massive green arrow pointing down the hole. Because I just assumed that was a death hole that you're not supposed to go in. Okay, the trick here is to get inside there so they can't shoot us. Are they shooting through that wall? Because that looks like it would protect us. Oof. Being a time killer isn't an easy task. Yeah, I still want a little bit of a rationalization of the time limit, even if it's nothing big. You know, just make everything explode when I run out of time. Or the character runs out of battery or something. Just have a thematic reason for the timer. It's quite an abstract game, doesn't need to be a big one, but the source of the peril or the fail state in your game should have some sort of in-world reason, I think. And then, okay, to actually finish the level, you have to defeat that guy. Giving kind of Res type vibes with the music and the overall sort of style of the game. Okay. We'll see if we can make it to the third level. I don't have a lot of hope for myself in this because I just am too bad at reactions, but we'll see. Yay. That was satisfying. Yeah, the worst crime with input devices is using a standard Unity controller that has some controller coverage and then not realizing you haven't updated it. Because that means that when people play your game, they pick up their controller, start moving the character around, think it has controller implementation, and then they find out some buttons don't work. Which happens a lot with me because I tend to default to controller if it looks like an action game. It's probably also because I'm so old that I remember the era when most sort of proto PCs came with a little black joystick with 2 buttons on it. I had one of those on the Amiga 500. I may have had one on the Amstrad as well, I can't remember. I had an Amstrad CPC that I used right into the 90s. It was like the first thing I coded on. And then as soon as I had a proper PC in the late 90s, I was like, no more proper coding, only RPG Maker now. And then I didn't touch a real programming language between BASIC in like 1995 up until like my late 20s when I started learning Game Maker and stuff like that again. I think it's why I bounce off of learning C in Unity, is because it is such a like programming language that was not designed for games being used in a games context. There's so many things that are just like, well, this is called this because that's what it's called in programming in general. And it's just like, yeah, but why do we need to use all of the like all of the, it's not even the it's not even the syntax, it's the semantics. Like, why do we use that that term for something when a better term exists in games that makes more sense to more people? You know, that's the thing that has really held me back from learning anything like C. Yeah, it is Lawnmower Man, isn't it? It's Lawnmower Man. I'm going to give this one more try and then we're going to move on to the next one. Ah! I got time killed. That's neat. I think, yeah, there's like there's a fundamental communication problem with the hub area. Because messing around in that hub area sort of made me think that, okay, I can't continue with this. So just stick a big arrow there. That will idiot-proof the beginning area. The main game, I would say one small piece of feedback is, in the main game, I didn't feel like I could really pay attention to the timer as I was focusing on the action. Because it is so Twitch-based that you don't really have time to look around the screen and look at stuff that's in your peripheral. So I don't know if this was there already, but I think when the timer is getting low and people need to hurry, doing stuff that really catches your eye out of the corner of your eye to that timer, because if you look at this now, this kind of radial thing and the number changing is not very noticeable unless you're paying close attention to it. So doing like big red button awooga type stuff with it when the player needs to know particular information, if it goes up and something positive has happened to the timer, glow it gently green, the whole thing. If it's in danger mode, like flash the whole thing, something like that, because I think the movements, the changes in this interface up in the top are just too subtle for me to notice while I'm actually playing the game and focusing on the center of the screen. But apart from that, really cool. General, like, creative approach is really neat. It's very stylish. You often see people kind of go down this Tron route and they just haven't really done it with any style. And I think this is... There's a very cool kind of Y2K retro thing. Reminds me of Res and stuff like that. I think, yeah. But have a reason for the race against time. I think another thing as well, in games that are based on like trying and failing, you have to have a sort of what I'd call like a negative celebration when the player fails. You think of the "you died" in Dark Souls. Basically, if people are failing a lot, you don't need to like waste their time. You want to get people back into the retry loop and not like have something that happens that takes 10 seconds of like everyone shows up for Time Killer's funeral or something and press F to pay respects. But you should have some sort of like almost like a negative fanfare for losing, so that it's not just an anticlimactic deflation. It's like... it's just something that happens over and over in the game, so you should try and make it feel a bit more meaningful. Here it just felt like a very sort of like record scratch. sort of anticlimax, and I think that's maybe not a good look in a game that has so many retries in it. So you want to keep the retry loop quick. You want to get people back into the action. You know, Blood Thief does this very well. You die, and it's just like, and just having something there to sort of punctuate it and make it feel a bit more meaningful. And it could be something as simple, and I don't think it did this. It could be something as simple as like cutting the music and then bringing the music back in when you play, just so that there's a little bit more of a distinction between when you're playing and when you're not playing, to kind of break up the attempts. But yeah, very impressed with this. I'm not going to ever be particularly good at a game like this, because when you get into those big jump things, the level of like Twitch response and memorizing the level that you have to do, I'm just not going to be good at that. But I could see this having an audience that become, you know, super into speedrunning it and stuff like that. So whatever you can do to give them the tools to make it that kind of game, I think this could do very well in that kind of space. Cool. That was Time Killer. Links are on the YouTube video description. As Seamus says, has anyone done work on the philosophy behind controller input, like the D-pad is spatial, the mouse and other buttons are preferature? I don't know, actually. I know there's definitely thought that goes into it, like the level of like which actions on the controller are mimetic and which are abstractions, right? So by mimetic, I mean that pressing a trigger button feels like pressing a trigger on a gun, right? So we wouldn't have trigger buttons and then map the gun to something else unless we had a really good reason for it, because that feels so much like a gun, so it's obvious. And then the other form of mimesis you have on a controller is kind of like the joystick being the neck of the character in a third-person game. I don't know. Jesper Juhl writes about it a little bit in the Casual Revolution, where he talks about how things like Wii Tennis and the Guitar Hero and stuff are mimetic, and that's what makes them more accessible to people, because you're not having to learn this abstraction of using a controller or a mouse or a keyboard to play a game, which is kind of what makes games more hardcore, is the amount of learning involved in them. I'm sure there are people that have written about this. I'm sure there are people who are giving GDC talks on it. But it's not something that I've looked into specifically, because I think it's the sort of thing that anyone who works in games or thinks hard about games can usually work out from first principles as well, which is probably why there's not like a massive call for literature on it. But let's go. Let's have a quick... The semiotics of the game controller. A semiotic analysis of the game controller from 2018. Johan Blomberg is a researcher in cognitive semiotics at Lund University. Here you go. Here you go, Seamus. Right. Sorry guys, we're not playing any more games. The rest of the stream is me reading a GameStudies.org paper very slowly. An important question for video game research is how... This is... I'll make a different channel, an ASMR channel, where I just... An important question for video game research is how to characterize the video game experience. One common view emphasizes that players are cognitively able to operate within the game world as the experiential point of reference, leading to states of immersion, spatial presence, or engagement. A different view is that the player is also embodied and situated in the actual world, entailing that the video game experience also involves physical preconditions like hardware for playing. One aspect that has not been clearly thematized and analyzed is the contribution of the video game controller. I propose that the controller is not just an input device that lets the player act in the video game, but to play a video game is to act both on the controller and in the video game through the controller. It has the dual character of requiring the player to act in the actual world while simultaneously providing the player with a link to the video game. This duality is similar to signs, which makes it possible and fertile to analyze game controller pairings according to general semiotic principles. This kind of makes sense to me because of the thing I was just talking about. If someone is very, very embedded in games culture and plays lots of games, then the distinction between those two things is going to be smaller, right? So if you play a lot of games where you, like, for example, controlling a character with the left joystick or the WASD keys while controlling the camera with the right joystick or the mouse, right? That's actually quite a complex set of things. If you watch a small child try to do it, if you watch an old person try to do it, it is like, the equivalent of like tapping your head while rubbing your belly. So if you've done that enough and you've practiced it, then your ability to kind of take that action and almost not perceive it as you're being immersed in the world of the game is going to be greater, right? It's like being able to drive a car versus being in the state where you're learning to drive a car. And when you're learning to drive a car, you're focused so much on what your hands and feet are doing that your kind of bandwidth to actually perceive what's outside of the car is much lower, which is why you're dangerous and why you need a driving instructor in the car with you, right? So the more you learn how to use a control schema or how to play a particular genre of game with a control schema, the more you move from being aware of yourself in the physical world, interacting with the controller, into being able to be immersed in the game. And that sort of helps explain why, people that play only casual games on like touchscreen devices are able to kind of zone out and play that game. But if you give them Call of Duty or something, they will have this awkward experience and not really be able to get into it. And when we talk about like getting into it, maybe we're talking about immersion or engagement or one of these things. So I don't think that's exactly what you're looking for, Seamus, but I think it's kind of close. I've tried mapping them to 6 types of telecity. Activity is a line of continuous activity. A key press is a semi-effective or instantaneous, and pinch zoom is stative. Indie Book Club, yeah. Seamus, the other one you should maybe read is, have you read Game Feel by Swink? I'm gonna do. I've never actually read this front to back. We will do it in Game Developers Library at some point. But this is really neat. He uses certain things from like music technology, like attack, sustain, decay, to explain how you make something like a jump in a platformer, for example, to bring it back to the stream. How you make something like that feel good, and it's often not. It's the kind of stuff you're talking about. It's like, how does a key press map onto the action? It's not always that the action just immediately triggers as soon as you press the key press, right? So all of these things that we consider, and this is why, like, in a big game studio, the game field design of 3Cs, camera, character controls, that's a whole person's job. It could even be a team of people's jobs in a like 200-person studio, because it is that important to make a game feel good. And if you're making a game on your own and it's an action game of some description, that's just a small part of what you're doing, but it still needs to feel good. And that's why you can just spend weeks and weeks agonizing over how the camera moves. And we've had games like some of the community games that are in our Discord, which I maybe play more often than others because we do like reviews every month. If you take Chair Champions, for example, which is this top-down, very funny racing game where you're racing office chairs, that has been through so many iterations on how the camera moves in the time I've seen it. And that's because it's important. It's not because like the developer is bad at cameras. It's just because it's important. Cameras and character controllers are hard. They require a lot of thought. They're the sort of thing that as the developer you can get desensitized to very quickly and not realize that something doesn't feel good, or it makes you feel sick, or it just doesn't feel right for the fantasy of the game. Like, I don't know, like you make a ship in a naval game move at a realistic pace, and then you just realize it just doesn't feel fun, right? That was the example in Jesse Schell's book when he talks about making Pirates of the Caribbean game, is that pirate ships moving at actual pirate ship speed does not feel exciting in an action game context. So you sort of have to make them move at the speed of the fantasy rather than the speed of the reality. All of these things, like the things that contribute to game feel, are very hard to do. They require you to be able to step out of the game you're working on and view it objectively. And I think actually that is probably one of the reasons why I enjoy working on more than one game at once, and why I would encourage people to try that if they haven't done that. If you're the kind of person that has one pet project, never jumps between games, I think working on more than one game at once, it's probably a good way to never finish a game, for sure. But it's also probably a good way to deal with this problem of becoming too desensitized or too used to the game feel of your game so that you can't judge it objectively. I mean, a cheaper way of doing that is just to make sure that you're actually playing games and that game dev hasn't become your only hobby in the world, because so many very competent engine users and game developers get bad at game design purely because they're not playing enough games and like playing them critically and thinking about, okay, why does the jump work this way in this game? Why have I decided to make my jump work differently? All of that kind of stuff you can only get through playing things and playing them critically. So yeah, working on a couple of games or just making sure you take breaks from the games you're making to see how other games do things, because our memory of how a game did a thing is usually not right. Let's check out Teeto. So this is the one that I'm not going to say worried about, but whenever I see a platformer like this that kind of looks like it's made with children in mind, I sort of think, who is this for? Because children aren't on Steam buying their own games most of the time. So what I'm hoping this is a game with a childlike sort of aesthetic, but with enough for me as an adult to kind of get my teeth into, because otherwise, who is this for? Teeto, Power to Change. That makes it sound like a therapy game. I'm a little blob. Hey, Stefan. I'm a little blob. The movement feels very smooth, but then every so often, if I stop moving and then move again, I get a big old lag. He is a very charming blob. Slightly nightmarish at the same time. I like, if you look, it's lovely attention to detail here. So, look, he sort of smiles when you start moving him. I don't know if you can make that out. He smiles when you start moving him, and it also has this interesting sort of velocity thing where... So I'm going to stand at this side of the room and run to the other side. It sort of gradually goes from like a jog to a Naruto run. I'm not pressing any different buttons apart from directional joystick. You know, he goes run, and then puts his arms out. So do it that way so you can see it better. And when he goes into the Naruto run, he does his sort of like Sonic the Hedgehog badass eyes. Boo! And I'm sorry, I've been gendering him, but I don't know. I'm gonna go for they for now, because no one has told me what Teeto's preferred pronouns are. And that is incredibly charming as well. Look, we're doing some doodling. Whoa! Okay, we've got some acrobatics on B. So I can do a double jump that does a flip, and then I've also got a dodge roll. And I've got like a slap. I think this actually might be Devil May Cry. It's pretending to be Spyro the Dragon, but it might actually be Devil May Cry. The only way to tell characters' gender in video games is if they have a bikini. That's right. That's how that works. Let me just check. So, chat box isn't showing up. Chat box has got no chat in it. What's going on? When I'm in that view, we can see the chat. Oh yeah, it's there. It's just a bit small. Need to put it over the display capture. Right, can I take this with me into the level? Are we going into the TV? The attention to detail on all of the like main actions you can do here is really, really high. Okay, we're going to go into one of these. So we've got some... the beginning... The Sunshine Forest, welcome to Shadow Town. I can choose which Teeto I'm going to be. It's Jonathan Davis from Korn.
Feeling like a little blue guy.
I'm gonna have to be Jonathan Davis Blob. Or Ozzy Osbourne. Oh, Sharon, I'm a little blue Bob. Feeling like a blob on a leash. Is Spyro a DMC like? Kind of what the Jack Black character in Brutal Legend looked like as well.
Phase 1 complete. Feel free to look around while I take notes.
Oh, it's an Aussie game, that's why it's so wholesome. It's from Bluey Land. Okay.
Okay, buddy. Come over here when you're ready to start phase 2.
The character's blue and it's Australian. It's a Bluey like. Sorry, I cannot tell the difference between an Aussie and Kiwi accent, so it might actually be Kiwi, but I think it's Aussie. It didn't have an upward inflection, though.
Oh, quick intro. I'm Nori. You are subject T33T0.
No, I'm not. I'm not Ozzy Osbourne. I'm a little blue guy.
I'm going to call you Teeto, and I'm so glad to meet you. I know you just got here and everything, but I need your help with something important. To start us off, I need you to focus on the shadow matter in this jar. Try absorbing it.
You're just gonna... We've just met, and you're telling me to absorb shadow matter. Something doesn't feel right here. Something doesn't feel right. Like... I think that's... I don't trust a bunny rabbit that just is like, hey, we've just met. We've just met. Time to neutralize a shadow corruption. I mean, it's saying neutralize it, which is maybe better than absorb it. Loving the post-it notes in the background. Absorb shadow matter, get snacks, save the world.
Effectively neutralized. Good job, Teeto. Give me a minute to write this all down. Feel free to hang out for a moment. Make yourself at home.
This bad boy can fit so much shadow matter. You got any games? You got any games on there? Yeah, the attention to detail. Right, this is answering the question, right? When I said at the beginning, I'm wary of games that look like kids' games because the Steam audience isn't kids, even if they like the look of a cutesy game. There is so much lovely attention to detail here. Look at that. So she is on a thing called Experiment, and then there's a browser tab next to it that says funny cat videos. And then you've got these post-it notes that say absorb shadow matter, get snacks, save the world. Loads and loads of lovely little details. And a football. If you're going to give people a whack that you can do in your game, it's good to give them something to whack. So putting a football in this room, good idea.
Wait, what is happening?
I'm absorbing stuff. It's Kirby. I'm a water. Be like water. I'm doing what Bruce Lee told me to do. Okay, I can absorb the water and turn into a water. And now I have a water gun power. Oh no, hang on. Yeah, it's Kirby. Cool. So RT is water gun now, it says. But I think it's greyed out. I can't use it, which is a shame, because that's going to make this section confusing for people. Because you're allowing me to do the absorption, but not allowing me to use the move that's up in the top left there. I'm a garbage guy. I like the Carly Rae Jepsen version. Yeah, I hope it does well. It's very charming so far. It's already done a lot
So
to alleviate
crazy.
my
I know where we can use that. I know you're only like 5 minutes old, but I'm gonna blow your tiny little mind. Hey, come over to the big screen. I've got something to show you.
I mean, it's already totally fixed the concerns I had about it. It's shown me a couple of mechanics early on where I'm like, okay, this is gonna have a range of stuff to do in, and it's gonna make good use of like exploring the environment and finding stuff. So, you know, feels reasonably well pitched. Charming, family-friendly game that is totally enjoyable by an adult. Nori's super amazing, incredibly helpful, barely tedious, beautifully wonderful presentation.
Okay, so bad news first. The planet's being eaten by creepy shadow things.
Oh, I hate
Kind
it.
of oozed out of this shadow matter stuff. Really quite rude of them, to be honest.
Is this Earthsea? I'm expecting a letter from the lawyers of the Ursula K. Le Guin estate.
I made you a backpack. It's got a machine in it that gets super cool powers from your weird absorby forms.
Mhm.
It runs on vionites, powerful shiny crystal things.
Okay.
Very stable-ish.
Okay. So I can't use the Kirby abilities unless I
Meet my proudest
collect
failure.
sparkly
so
stars.
I met a guy named Michael, and then he duplicated a lot. Now the Michaels are scattered across the land like glitter. Tiny, confused villains. Danger. Lost baby Michaels. Bring it on. 2 heroes, 1 mission, and 0 plan. Let's go!
Okay. It's very charming.
Comfy? I know I am. Oh, before
You're
we
in my
go,
back.
I've got a spare Vionite around here somewhere. We should bring it with us. Use the Aero Finder to track it down.
It's a Jack and Daxter like. I got to use the Aero Finder. The problem is that every English speaking streamer that plays this game is going to do an Aussie accent as they play it now. It's just
Nice. Now let's get out of here.
let's get out of here. Lol Mao in the chat said, "Can I give you some? Can you give me some advice?" Oh, I was hoping you were going to give me some advice. I can give you some advice, yes, but it will be meandering and of.
A baby Michael, quick, catch him.
Why is it called a baby Michael? Lol Mao, I can give you some advice. Whether it will be any help to you will be another matter. But okay, we collect some sparklies. Yes.
Safe now, sweetie.
Original Michael.
All right, Teeto. See that crane hook up there? Let's use that to get us out.
So a thing that is bothering me a little bit in this early stage. Oh, okay. I can use my Blood Blaster. It's just you really have to like stop moving around to go into the aim mode to use the abilities. Okay. Baby Michael. What's that? Cool. Yeah, this is doing a lot of 3D platformer stuff very well. There's like lots of stuff in the room that you can't see until you get to a different vantage point, and then when you're there you can see that there's an opportunity to do another thing. Get another thing. I'm sort of missing some of that tutorial text. It's not to leave the burrow, absorb a flower and use your absorb ability to grapple the hook. Okay. A flower? But before... Oh. I think I just destroyed the flower. I don't seem to be able to absorb it. It was LT before. It was left trigger. It's not doing anything now. I don't know if I've broken the game. I just want to absorb a flower. It won't let me absorb any of the things. I don't know if I've hit a bug. Is there a way that I can go back? I need to be able to skip this.
Phase 1 complete. Feel free to look around while I take notes. Please don't break anything.
Please break everything.
Okay, buddy. Come over here when you're ready to start phase 2. Oh, quick intro. I know to start us off, I need you to focus on the shadow meter in this jar. Try absorbing it.
Sorry for the repetition, folks. Really not sure whether I just got blocked because of mechanics or a bug or whatever.
What is happening?
But we'll see. I want to get beyond that point. I want to see what like a proper level is like, because this is all very tight and small spaces.
That's so crazy.
Because they don't want us to do too much.
I know you're only like 5 minutes old, but I'm gonna blow your tiny little mind. Hey, come over to the big screen. I've got something to show you. Okay, so meet villain.
Having a character do the lore drop as a PowerPoint presentation is very funny as well.
I've got a spare Vionite around here somewhere. We should bring it with us. Use the arrow finder to track it down.
Okay, the arrow finder, I didn't really grasp that mechanic the first time. Okay. Is it in there?
Nice. Now let's get out of here. A baby Michael, quick, catch him.
Must I catch a baby Michael? Why can't a baby Michael go free?
All safe now, sweetie. Alright, Teeto. See that crane hook up there? Let's use that to get us out.
Grapple the hook as a flower. Okay. There's a flower. Yeah, so devs, if you're watching this, there's some sort of bug. First time I did this, I couldn't absorb the flower power, and I don't know how.
Woo!
I think it might be because I had another power.
It's because it is.
I'm a
The
flower!
drone has a Vionite. We need to get it down somehow.
The interplay between the camera and the way the character moves is just absolutely perfect.
A super high-tech simulation
It looks like it would be difficult, but it's really smooth. Michael with the cool hat. So you can absorb the trash bags or get sparklies out of them. Oh, I de-transformed. My trash bag. Trash bag power. I would be interested to hear the development story of this, because it feels like someone was like, I love Kirby, and someone needs to update it. Oh, I guess I'll do it. I just want to get to a point where I get to use a power in a way that isn't kind of told to me, I guess. Okay, we can boing on those trash bags as well. there's lots of little objects that have multiple uses, different verbs you can do to them. You know, a trash bag, we can absorb it, we can bounce off it, or we can smash it and get the stars. And that's neat. I can't quite work out if the movement is different per form or if it just feels different because of the animation.
Okay, fine. Yes, it's just cardboard. But, oh, wait, there's more.
I'm a big bad shadow monster thing. I'm a bad guy, an evil bad guy, and I will never be defeated.
I will defeat you.
You'll never defeat me. Oh no, I'm defeated.
Congratulations! You can defeat cardboard.
Chat shit, get banged. Hi, Maxime. Can I get in there? Do I need to smash it? It's in ice. I need to get a fire form. There's some good puzzle design there as well. Show the problem before you get to the solution. I see a shiny. It's in a block of ice. I can immediately start deducing about the way to resolve that even if I don't have the tool yet. That's good puzzle design. I need to find a fire form and then go back there, I think.
That looks like it might be a bit far for us to jump. Let's glide.
I will. Oh. Just sounds good. Yeah, I want to play the cute Aussie game. I don't know what's happening in it, but...
Lucky it's just a pesky little one.
Hello, pesky little shadow creature.
Yes! Neutralized!
That's very, sort of non-violent language for it, isn't it? Let's be honest, I killed him.
I
think the control to lose your current form. Oh, you can switch between your last form and yeah, okay. That's not immediately obvious, I don't think. I would maybe map that somewhere different. The thing is, when I go to use my blaster, I have to hold down the right shoulder button to aim and then the left one to fire, right? Which is the opposite mapping to how we used to using iron sights and firing in most games that have firing in. And then also, when I'm not aiming, the fire button becomes the change power button. And I think there's like a logic here of trying to use as few buttons as possible, but I don't think that kind of just doesn't work for me totally. If you smell what the rock is cooking. Okay, one more bit and then we'll move on. There isn't a great deal here to feedback on because we're looking at a very, very polished demo. Let's go to Shadowtown. But I do think that some of the control mapping is a bit unintuitive. It's Kiwi, yeah. That makes sense. That's why I wasn't doing the upward inflection on things that aren't questions. Sorry, I should have been the cow. Hey, Claim. So anyone who has games in the GMTK Jam, I think I'm going to do a stream on Saturday and play some of those. So folks that are in our Discord have already sent links to those. I will play the ones from our Discord members, and then I'll just play some of the ones that are considered to be the best games in the Jam as well. Yeah, probably do that on Saturday. I haven't scheduled it yet time-wise because I need to see what else is happening, but... I mean, it's not released yet. This is still a demo. It's not been released, but... You know, this is the quality games should be when they're at Steam demo phase. You know, Steam demos are not meant to be prototypes or alpha builds and stuff like that, you know. I think people really lost a sense of what demo means over the past sort of 10 years or so. A demo is like the finished quality of the game, and it's just a bit of the game.
Up in these buildings reminds me of something. What is it? Oh, my crippling fear of heights.
You know, in the 90s when you used to get an ID software or a 3D Realms game like a Doom or a Duke Nukem, they'd put out this freeware version where you just got the first act and you get the whole first third of the game for free. That was a demo. It was like, this is exactly what this section of the game is going to be like in the past. Obviously, you're going to make changes and iterations, and it can't always be exactly the same. But it should be the representative of the quality of the thing. And there are a lot of...
That's ominous.
There are a lot of developers, let's call them slop merchants, who think they're just putting a massive disclaimer at the front saying, this isn't the... Please don't hurt me, this isn't the final quality. It's like, well, if it's not the final quality, why are you putting a demo on Steam at this stage? Best foot forward. Best foot forward. Wait until you've got something that actually looks like the quality that you would be comfortable spending money on if you were a gamer and you could look at your work objectively instead of something that you spend a lot of time on. Whenever I say stuff like this, people are always like, there's like a culture within, particularly YouTube developer culture of like, oh, we're all in this together, and anything anyone does that they put effort into should be celebrated. And it's like, yeah, but just don't put it on Steam and call it a commercial project. You'll notice I'm never harsh of ropey games that are just on itch. I'm only ever harsh on games that are slapped with wishlist this and stuff like that. Oh, we're doing a... Yeah! See, this is how to do a moving towards the camera section. It's used deliberately to be a difficult thing. This is what they used to do in Crash Bandicoot. And we're using the theme as well. We're in Shadowtown. This is like thematically as dark and serious as this game is going to get, so it's kind of telegraphing that this is going to be a more difficult place and we're going to get stuff like this. It's the carpet from the Overlook Hotel in The Shining. Of course, the carpet in Shadowtown is the Shining carpet. I'll give that one more try, and then we'll move on to the last game. I seem to, after I die, I seem to have picked up, like, the collectibles I hit in the last run stay collected, which is very forgiving, I think. The little shadow guy carrying drinks. There's so much background detail, and it means that when you're retrying the level because you failed, you see different things each time, even though it's like a set piece of the same stuff happens every time. There's just so many little details that you wouldn't see the first time you run through. Really, really neat. Wonderful.
Ooh, what was that?
Since his horror mansion uses the carpet texture from The Shining. So, Kunin, it did jump in difficulty, but I did skip the second level. I went from the tutorial to the third level straight away. That is really, really lovely. I mean, how it feels to play is like you've got the Kirby ability of absorbing powers from things, but then the actual, like, moving the character feels like Fall Guys. And that is a combination of things that works very well together. Just like 2 games about a blobby guy trying not to fall down a hole. Smush them together, get something new.
Turns out is
Yeah, very, very impressed with that. Aki said you saw an uptick in Steam page and a demo at ASAP Advices a lot lately. Yeah, I mean, there's reasons for that. I think one of the things is that people get confused between getting your game out for people to playtest it versus getting your game out for people to become interested in it as a product, right? And getting people to playtest your game, like dozens of people, maybe hundreds of people, should be part of your R&D process for proving your prototype before you even decide that that game is a commercial project and that you want to sell it. That's in my ideal world. And you have to remember here, the type of people, there are people that give that advice, do this as early as possible, and it's all very well intentioned, and it's not bad advice from a commercial standpoint, right? But a lot of this commercial advice only really works if you're a good game designer, if you're a good game developer, if you can make something appealing where everything works well and feels good, you're going to take the time to catch the bugs, you are going to be objective about your game and not kind of give it a pass on areas where it's shoddy because it just is too much work and all of that kind of stuff. That kind of advice to get the demo up early and all of that works very well, as far as I'm aware, if you are good at what you're doing, right? So let's say you were coming from a background where you are, you're not just like a hobbyist, you're going indie. You've made games before, and this is your first game you're releasing as a commercial project, but you fundamentally know how to make games because you're going indie from like working in a studio or something like that. Then all of this very commercially minded advice makes a lot of sense. But the problem is that online platforms are, based around having the biggest audience possible, right? So you can't differentiate between types of audiences and say, this advice applies to you if you've been making games for 10 years, and this advice applies to you if you've been making games for 6 months. And the problem is, there's lots of very well-meaning advice that applies to seasoned game developers that is very, very helpful, but then people that have been messing around in a game engine for 6 months read that and they want to immediately go to cosplaying being like a professional game developer, so they start taking all that stuff on board and they don't need it yet, right? So you need to learn the basic craft of building a game in a game engine, and you also need to learn game design, which is a separate thing. And you often can't really learn game design until you've learned how to build games, because you need to be able to iterate and test and iterate and test. And the problem is that all of the game development content is just lumped together as one thing, and that means you get all of this commercial marketing oriented stuff before you need it. You don't need it. And it to be honest, it's the same for every medium. Like, I make music, I follow a lot of content about songwriting and about the music industry as well, and it's exactly the same over there. And part of that is that people can't, it's kind of like the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's generally a disproven theory, but the idea that sometimes when you're new to something, you're so bad at it, you don't know that you're not very good yet. And that means that someone who is new to making music, making games, making films, whatever it is going to be more attracted to the how do I get rich type content than the how do I just do well at this thing in the first place type content, because they don't even recognize their need to consume that type of content and to focus on learning the craft first. They think that if they can just learn the technical side of being able to code something and get an idea out, then it will be good. And a lot of people think game design is just like having an idea and executing on it. It's not. It's having an idea, executing on it, iterating on it over and over and over again until it's better. And then where the technical side comes in is not just building the thing one time. It's getting fast enough at building the thing that you can make your iteration cycles really fast, and you can build the game 10 times so that you can actually eventually get to a good game. People want to skip this. They want to learn the basics of making a game engine, learn barely anything about game design, and just hope someone will tell them, oh, if you make a game in this genre, they're hot right now, you'll do well. Not how it works. Successful games are very rarely made that way. So, yeah, I don't think that kind of advice, when people say get a demo up early, get a Steam page up early, I don't think it's necessarily wrong, but I just think that a large amount of the audience for that stuff doesn't need to be thinking about that yet, because they're not making good games and they shouldn't be thinking about taking games to market. And I think that is fundamentally the difference between my channel and what a lot of other channels do. Is I'm not here to inspire people to start making games. I am here to inspire people who are already making games to try and make their games better. That is a much smaller target audience, but from my perspective as a game designer and someone who is very passionate about games and likes games and hates seeing stores full of slop, if my impact on the world is that 1,000 games that get released are slightly better because of my design feedback and my advice, and then 10,000 people who were making terrible games and just trying to get a quick buck, if they all quit, then that's been a net positive. Because my goal, I'm not interested in this perspective where everyone who's trying to make a game is on the same team and stuff. That's not to say that making games is competitive. We should help each other, we should support each other, but I think that helping each other and supporting each other is not about having a low standard of quality and encouraging other people to just release whatever they make and put slop out there. I think encouraging each other and supporting each other is about trying to see what someone else is trying to do from a design point of view and give them helpful feedback to guide that thing to being a better version of it. And if people aren't interested in doing that because they're not interested in iterating and just tweaking something to make it better, or throwing stuff out if it's not a good idea, if they're not interested in that fundamentally, they're not really interested in game design, and they shouldn't be making games. They should just be the kind of the drive that people have to try and make money from the thing is just too high. And if what you enjoy is just tinkering in a game engine, but you don't really enjoy iterating on a game and making it better and thinking about the player, you should just try and get a job, because you'll get money a lot easier just kind of working for someone else than starting your own company and starting your own studio. So, sorry, I went on a bit of a rant there. I will have a check back through the chat in a minute and see what people are saying, but I'm going to get Rat Trap ready first, and then I'll see who I've made cry with that rant in a second. Because I'm aware that this is the first day multi-streaming to Twitch as well, so we're going to have some new people in, and they're going to be like, who the hell is this guy? Why is he being so mean? Why doesn't he want to buy my 100th bad copy of Vampire Survivors? Oh yeah. Also, if we could bring back Steam Greenlight, I will happily. Like they should give me a job at Steam Greenlight. Restart Stream Greenlight, and I will be in charge of it. I don't know what I'll do. I'll just ban any game that I don't like. That will be it. Aki, getting 10k downloads on your first project is not a disaster. And to be honest, like, if the thing gets 10k downloads, even if it's bad, even if it's buggy, that at least shows that it's appealing. And I think what happens a lot with solo developers is they don't understand that your thing needs to be appealing. Like, an example of this I see a lot on this channel is people work with their constraints, right? They make what they're capable of making, and then they don't really think of like how to make the fiction of the game make that thing exciting. So an example of this would be rolling ball games where you're just a ball moving around an environment. It's like, okay, I can see why you've done that because it's easier for you to do, but what is the ball? Is it a magical ball? Is it some kind of sci-fi robot? And just that little bit of extra effort to make the thing appealing would have gone so far. And if you're already getting 10k downloads on a project that you don't consider to be very good or whatever, that at least shows that you've got the appealingness side of things. And maybe you need to work on the game, make the game work better from a technical point of view, make it more engaging from a mechanics point of view. But the appealing side of things, and do people like the idea of this game, do they like the character, is such a big part of, you know, games of fantasy. We play them as an activity where we do stuff and we carry out a challenge or uncover a mystery, but there is also this kind of what is the central fantasy of the game. And if you can get 10k downloads on the first thing you make, then it means that you're nailing that side of things very, very well. Cuckoo said, what if people are making hentai golf on Switch? Watch your video and make the slop game better. Is that a win? Yeah, I mean, I don't think hentai golf on Switch. That doesn't sound like slop. That sounds like art to me. Butters said iterating is the most fun part of the process. It should be. It should be, yeah. And I think if you don't find it fun, that should ring alarm bells that you should be doing something else. You know, I have all the neurodivergences. I'm very bad at sticking to projects. I'm very bad at self-discipline. Things like content creation work very well for me because it's making lots of little things, and some of those things can be the same. When I say little things, I mean videos, right? Some of those videos can be the same, some can be experiments. There's like a degree of like grinding out doing the same thing all the time and then experimenting with different formats and stuff like that. And like with a game, it's one big project. I find it very hard to finish games because of just the way my brain works. And then recently, because of this channel and having the Discord community, I've been able to work in a different way, which is to like jump in and mentor someone on something they're making and help them do one system or mechanic, and then, you know, maybe do some level design for someone else, which is kind of exactly what works for me. I think we have a problem at the moment where the narrative around how games are made is just like solo devs yelling to everyone else to be solo devs, and then people trying to force themselves into that mold when it's not necessarily what's going to make them happy. But hey, it takes decades of existing in the world to work out what makes you happy and what makes you unhappy. And I think there's lots of there's lots of stuff on YouTube that is not necessarily bad practical advice, but all centered around this idea of you need to try and be a particular type of developer, and I just don't think it's healthy or helpful for most people. Yeah, I think everyone here is in support of hentai golf. I think, Cuckoo, you need to make hentai golf. Does that already exist? Is that a Switch game? I mean, one of the reasons why I try not to have my entire Steam library open when I'm on a stream is an academic I used to work with when I taught at university decided it would be funny at some point to send me all of the Sakura like erotic visual novels as a joke present one year. And I know you can hide them and stuff, but I think he just thought it would be really funny if whenever I was trying to teach a class, I had Steam open and there were just all of these hentai games there. I don't think I've played any of them for more than 10 minutes, but that's not necessarily because I'm anti that sort of thing. It's just not why I would play a visual novel, you know? Last visual novel I played for more than like an hour was one of the Vampire Masquerade ones, because I'm a goth deep down. I love being a bitchy vampire in living the city life. Right, this is Rat Trap Fusum demo, which has this looks like it has some very interesting mechanics of like how the fusing concept works. So I'm looking forward to this. Your next objective will be highlighted on your map, providing a more linear experience. Yeah, I'm going to put the nav assist on. Playing for the plot, yeah. Playing hentai games for the plot. I got to press X to get out of the box. That was charming. Okay, so we are a rat in a hamster ball. It doesn't move exactly like a hamster ball. It moves more like a character because it doesn't have any kind of slidiness. But once you get going, it kind of... I mean, it feels really nice. But yeah, there's not the slidiness you might expect from the object. I'm not saying that as a complaint. I'm just trying to describe the game feel for those of you who are watching and not playing along. Which I imagine is all of you, because that would be weird. Thanks, Squash and Stretch. I appreciate it. I'm always happy to hear comments from new people. Okay, we down jump to do the drop through platforms. That's mapped exactly how I would expect it to be. Just the regular jump button and down. Yeah, always happy to hear from new commenters. I had a ramble at the start of the stream about the worst types of comments I get, and they're mostly from people who just need to unfollow the channel and stop watching. It's like, it's really interesting when you're doing something that people seem to like, you know, you're doing something you enjoy and people seem to like it, right? You've got like a channel or a game and people seem to like it and you're doing it that particular way because that's what you enjoy doing and that's your personal taste of like how you want to design a thing or how you want to make content. And then people kind of come in and give you these like little micromanagey things of like, oh, have you thought of doing this a bit faster or this? And it's like, well, I'm doing the thing the way I enjoy it, and lots of other people seem to like it that way. So I always appreciate it when a new person just says something positive, because I get a lot of these kind of nitpicky little comments where I just... It's like I'm open to criticism, but it's just often something that I'm just fundamentally not going to do. Like, can you change the entire ethos of what you do? No. The other one is when people say, I like what you do, but... And there's a function on YouTube where you can click on a user's avatar and it shows you other things they've said on your channel. And I'll occasionally get one of these, I like what you do, but... kind of comments. And then I look at what they've said before and they've said 2 or 3 comments that are all the same. They've never said anything that wasn't a criticism framed as, I like what you do, but... And yeah, it's just one of those things you have to kind of get used to and toughen up as soon as anything you do gets an audience. But people's lack of self-awareness about... I guess people don't understand that when they watch content or something, there is a thought process that goes into how that thing works. And some of that is based around, like, what is the creator able to do? Like, in terms of their budget or their time available to them in their life. And some of it's to do with, like, what's enjoyable to do. Because if you do something like streaming or making videos, it is going to be a long... Like, my channel has grown incredibly quickly. But it takes a long time to get to the point where you're making enough money to even just pay yourself like a basic living wage on a thing. You know, I'm starting to achieve that now between YouTube and Patreon, and it's taken a year. And that was a very fast growing channel, but it's still like, okay, to do something like that where you're not making much money and you're trying to help people, you still need it to be fun for yourself, right? So if anyone ever gives me feedback that is like, can you stop doing the thing you find fun about this? It's like, no. Often it's like, because the channel is pseudo-educational, it will be people being like, I just want the educational aspect. I don't want any of your personality or any of that kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, downvotes are kind of okay to me because it's like, with a downvote, it's like you're not trying to waste my time by giving me something to read that was just fundamentally not helpful to either of us. It wasn't helpful for like the person to write, and it wasn't helpful for the creator to read. Like, the best type of person is someone who just can say this isn't for me and then just stop engaging with that content rather than thinking they need to like tell the person what they don't like about it. Okay, I've got a bouncy jump that can get me back up here. And okay, I guess that was just to learn, that room was just to learn this, and now I use it somewhere else. Yeah, the one I got recently was I did that kind of live lecture about level design approaches, and the live lecture was about, well, it was longer than 2 hours, right? And then I took the time to edit it down to 20 minutes, which took me another hour or two. And then someone left a comment on the 20-minute version saying, "You talk too much." And that wasn't all they said in the comment, but it was how they started their comment. And I don't know, maybe there's a language barrier thing, but in what world would you go up to a £200 man in person and start your feedback with the phrase, "You talk too much"? Like, people's level of... Sometimes it's rudeness, sometimes it's just not knowing what words mean. But I think sometimes it is just the kind of... Like, I will never sort of kowtow to the idea that you should expect different... you should expect kind of different standards of politeness from people online just because it's online. I think that is an idea that is perpetuated in toxic online environments and doesn't need to be the norm everywhere else. How do I make those blocks appear? Sorry, I've been rambling and not super focused on the game. But that is in itself a good sign that everything here works very well. So we've got a left and right, we've got a jump, we've got a dash that can be used directionally, or we can use it downwards to do this like power bounce thing. That's really nice because it means we get several actions out of one button input. We don't have to have like loads of different stuff we can do we don't have to have like loads of different buttons. We're doing lots of different things with the directionality of the same dash move, which feels very good. I'm trying to work out how to get that box. So we're doing a fair bit of backtracking. It's doing kind of Metroidvania backtracking. Go and get a power in one place and go somewhere else. So yeah, I think someone had a question about that in the chat. It's already kind of been answered in this introductory section. How do I get up there? Ah. Yeah, the downward bounce is really neat because it's like a ground pound that also makes your jump higher than it normally would be when you come back up. So ooh. It is very Cartoon Network, isn't it? Yeah, I can see that. Kind of Teen Titans. It's if you look at the rat, it's the style they do in Teen Titans, where they do like a kind of 1960s Pink Panther style illustration, and then they kind of do it with more funkier, kind of modern colours. Right, my next... It says my next target is in this room. If that's what the S means on the map. Am I supposed to be getting something from in here? Oh, it's the save point. Okay. So the next target is actually the downward arrow on the map. I don't know what button that is. That's me. I feel like that icon is a bit obnoxious for just being the marker for where you are. Like, that's... It's not the least important thing on the map, but it's not that important right now. Why does it look so angry and spiky? Right, and down here is the new objective. So I've got to go right, down, left. How do we do this? Where am I even trying to get? Because it says I need to go right from here, but this... Okay, this is a dead end. Go this way. I'm getting a little bit lost, but I think that's okay, because fundamentally, if this is a Metroidvania and it is about exploration, then they need to teach me that, and it does seem to be... It does seem to be trying to onboard me into that way of thinking very quick, which I think is actually a good shout. Like, if you've got a game where there's a particular skill, like navigation in this case is a skill that is required for this game, you don't want to, like, hide that too much in the introduction tutorial, and then people get through the tutorial and then find out the game is about something fundamentally different than it presented. So, I'm getting a bit lost, but I don't think that's a bad thing. What? I'm this now. I'm one of these. I can shoot. Man, okay, so we've switched character. It's kind of giving Abe now. Like when you possess the guards in Abe and you're a different character. And he can shoot those things and turn them solid. Which doesn't make literal sense, but it makes visual sense in terms of how everything is designed to look. Oh. I think I just somehow exited that character when I wasn't supposed to. Okay, so that's a platform that needs 2 characters on it to progress. That's why it's got a weight on. The visual communication in this was very strong. Like, I've got lost a couple of times, but every time I see mechanical elements in the game, it's very easy to visually work out what they do, how you're supposed to use them. Rondell said, I wish I was a rat with a gun instead of... Well, okay. So B is to switch between them. So I think what happens is you get to a point where you can... kind of merge them into like a mech, which is why we're not a rat with a gun. Move and press. I think I just mispressed your switch character button. Okay, I pressed something. I switched to the other character. I can't do anything here yet. Squash and Stretch, are you a one-person team? Is this all one person, or are you like an artist and a programmer working together? Ah, I teleported it. Yes! I mean, it's not a game-breaking bug. That's fine. I never have any problem with bugs happening on these streams. It's when they're game-breaking and they're stuff that the developer could have found easily, you know? It hasn't actually stopped us progressing, as far as I can tell. See, Rondell? You merge the elements together and then you get a rat with a gun on gun on its wheelie ball, which is both very cute and also just feels really cool to maneuver. Like, feels really, really cool. Not totally sure what I'm supposed to do here. Oh, I can still do my bounce. That's it. Okay. I mean, I haven't played many new Metroidvanias recently, but this is the kind of... The way that the character moves in this is really, really satisfying. The balance between, like, trying to master the moveset and puzzle the environment and stuff is really, really neat. Haven't had many points where I've got really stuck. Had a few points where the game made me feel smart in some way, which is what you want in anything that could be perceived as a puzzle platformer. You know, you maybe want to make the player feel stupid eventually, but not straight away. Ah! Okay, try again. Okay, back to the map. Yeah, this is really solid. Okay, we're going back along to the left now. I don't know if our quest markers are really working the way they should be, because we don't know the here we go. That was what it was marking for us. Couldn't do that earlier because I was just a rat in a cage, despite all my rage. And what I really needed to be was a rat in a cage with a gun on top to be heavy enough. Yeah, I sort of old school. Like, I think I played Metroid at some point on a emulator, and my Castlevania knowledge is like playing Symphony of the Night all the way through. And I've only played a little bit of Hollow Knight, so I like the general idea of them. I think it's just one of those. It's like I said earlier, sometimes there are genres that just like lots of people make bad ones of. So it puts you off the genre. And then you think that genre is bad, but actually it's just a genre that has lots of bad games in it, which is not the same thing. It's just... It happens a lot with platformers because there are lots of like template projects for every engine that are a platformer, and people start making their first game and then they just never stop. Okay, we're splitting here so we can activate both of these. I can split again, go down there, bash that. Larry, all games are hard to make, Larry. All games. I think Metroidvanias are hard to make well. That doesn't stop people making them. But like, this has the fundamental thing that a lot of the ones I've seen before are missing, which is having an appealing character that is a cool set of moves that sort of makes sense thematically as well. Sure. Thanks, TD. Oh yeah, the level design aspect. It's like, you know, you think of so many of the genres that people are being encouraged to do in the indie space at the moment. They are ones where you avoid making levels at all. I mean, the game I've been working on doesn't have levels. It just has sort of cards that you build the environment out of. Because level design is a whole... I think maybe that's a good way of, you know, assessing how easy a game is going to be able to make. It's like, what parts of making this game would be an entire person's job at a bigger studio? So, like, level design is an entire discipline separate from game design, and you can be good at both, but you know, they both take a lot of learning and a lot of practice. So if you can make a game that doesn't have a level design requirement, you're making your life easier, right? Okay, 2 there, and then I need to do 1 there. I don't think I can do this yet, because I think I actually need 3 weight in total to be able to do it, so I think this is a come back later type puzzle. Uh-oh. Who's that? I can do something where my belt goes red. The character, it kind of reminds me a lot of Earthworm Jim as well. Just the idea of like a creature in a mech suit that allows it to do other stuff, but it never stops being that creature. Ah! That was pointless. It does make me think, though, if you wanted to take the Metroidvania format of, like, gradually unlocking these abilities and do it in a slightly more sustainable way where the level design is easier, you could take the idea of, like, unlocking all the abilities of a character like this or a character like Samus, and instead of doing it throughout the course of one, like, 4-hour game, you could create a series of, like, 5 levels where you do the process through each time. So it would be much more like a run-based game, like a roguelike, where within that 30-minute session, you go all the way through that upgrade thing. That could be a way of structuring a game like this that sort of iterates on the Metroidvania format. Hold LB to quick fuse all nearby characters. Don't mind if I do. Tap LB to quickly split all. So I can split apart and I can go back together. Okay, we're gonna try and get back up there, and then I'm probably gonna have to end this stream because I've got a work call to get on soon. Okay, I split apart here. I don't have any reason to split apart here. That's just a old tutorial thing telling me what I needed to know at the time. I still need to go all the way back up, I think. We got the whooshy. Again, like the visual communication, really strong. Using little gears as currency because they are an upgrade thing rather than like a general resource that you can use to buy anything. Makes a lot of sense. Can I get through there? Is that something I can do, or do I need to go round? It's telling me to go back down there now. I don't know what's going on with this with the navigation stuff. Can't blast through that. I've played a little bit of Animal Well. Yeah, I really like it. I find that the puzzles in it are like really satisfying when you grok them. It didn't hold my attention for very long. I'm not sure why, but I did like it. I think sometimes you just find a game at the wrong point where you're not really up for that particular thing. I see. Okay, we're gonna do that. And then we're gonna switch to another character. And then we're gonna do that. This is cool. Yes. I'm gonna stop there because I think that puzzle was a really good illustration of what this game has got going for it, right? You've got your rat, you've got your two other parts of your mech, maybe there are others, but the two work very well. You find them, you combine together, you become a little rat in a mech, which is just thematically really sweet because, you know, you think of lab rats and rats being experimented on, it's not very nice, so we've got a kind of nice heroic positioning here, and then you can combine and break things apart, and then there are situations where you need to do that in a very thoughtful order. Nice. What a great little room. But yeah, if anyone's making games like this, if anyone's making Metroidvanias, I would really encourage you to experiment with the format of like unlocking all the parts of your character multiple times, because I think that might make it easier to make than trying to copy the original Metroid or Castlevania, well, the Metroid format of like just one very long slow progression of collecting all the powers. It felt like we got a lot of powers very quickly there, so that makes me think like what are the puzzle iterations going to be of using these powers as we progress through the game. But the thing I like about this as well is that you look at the puzzles and you can kind of solve them in your head, and then actually carrying that puzzle out was not physically difficult. It wasn't like a Twitch challenge. It was just sort of satisfying to do after I'd realized what I needed to do. And I don't know if it kind of keeps that vibe to it as we progress through the game, but I found that very kind of satisfying. You have this like aha moment, you feel smart, and then you carry it out and you're like, yes, I was right, it works kind of thing. And yeah, really, really good. Great. I don't know how long this game is, what proportion of it we've played, but that was a very good onboarding in terms of you've got quite a lot of mechanics here. They felt very intuitive. There were a few times I fumbled with the controls, but not many. And yeah, it just onboarded you into the way of thinking that you need to do for the game very, very smoothly. So